The plate slipped from Carson Shaw's tired fingers, crashing to the floor of Bella's bistro with a deafening shatter that momentarily silenced the Thursday night dinner crowd. For a split second, his world stopped another mistake, another expense, another reason his boss might finally lose patience with his juggling act as a single father and part-time waiter. "I'm so sorry," he murmured, dropping to his knees to gather the ceramic shards, his calloused hands working quickly. 8-hour shifts at the construction site followed by evening waiter duty was wearing him thin, but Lily's asthma medication wasn't going to pay for itself. Shaw. "That's the second plate this week?" Mr. Donovan barked from across the restaurant, his face reddening as he approached. Carson nodded apologetically, continuing to clean the mess. At 32, this wasn't where he'd imagined his life would be, scraping by with 2 jobs while raising a 6-year-old daughter alone after his wife died 3 years ago. "It's coming out of your check," Donovan added, though his tone had softened slightly. He knew Carson's situation, knew how hard the man worked. "I understand," Carson replied, standing with the broken pieces carefully cupped in his hands. As he turned toward the kitchen, a commotion erupted from a corner table. A woman was struggling to stand, her hand clutching her throat, her face turning an alarming shade of red. Her dining companion, an older gentleman in an expensive suit, was frozen in panic. Without hesitation, Carson dropped the ceramic shards into a nearby bus tub and rushed across the restaurant. He recognized the universal sign of choking immediately. "Excuse me," he said firmly, moving the panicking companion aside. The woman's eyes were wide with fear, her manicured hands clawing at her neck. She was dressed impeccably in a tailored black dress that probably cost more than his monthly rent, her dark hair pulled back in an elegant knot. "I'm going to help you," Carson stated calmly, positioning himself behind her. He wrapped his arms around her waist, found the spot just above her navel, and delivered a sharp upward thrust. Nothing happened. The woman's eyes grew wider. Carson performed another abdominal thrust, harder this time, still nothing. On the third attempt, a piece of food shot from the woman's mouth. She gasped desperately for air, collapsing against Carson's chest as her lungs filled with oxygen. "Just breathe," he instructed gently, supporting her weight. "Nice and slow." The restaurant had gone completely silent, all eyes on them. The woman turned in his arms, her deep brown eyes meeting his as she struggled to regain her composure. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice raspy. "I think you just saved my life." Carson nodded, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. She smelled like expensive perfume and something uniquely her own. Anyone would have done the same. "Not true," her companion interjected, extending his hand. "I was useless. Charles Whitmore, family attorney." "And this is Tessa Sinclair," she finished for him, finally catching her breath. "I can introduce myself, Charles." Carson's eyes widened slightly. Everyone in town knew that name. Tessa Sinclair was the CEO of Sinclair Innovations, a tech company that had put their small town on the map. Her family had built the business from nothing, and rumor had it she was worth hundreds of millions. "Carson Shaw," he replied simply, suddenly self-conscious of his waiter's uniform and the dark circles under his eyes. "Mr. Shaw, I'm in your debt," she said, her voice growing stronger. "Please join us for a moment." Before Carson could decline, Mr. Donovan appeared at his side. "Take a break, Shaw. I've got your tables." The message was clear when Tessa Sinclair made a request in this town, people accommodated. Reluctantly, Carson sat at their table, hyper-aware of the stain on his shirt sleeve and the hole in the sole of his shoe pressing against the floor. The contrast between them couldn't have been more stark. "Water," Charles offered, pouring him a glass without waiting for a response. "Thanks," Carson said, taking a sip to ease his suddenly dry throat. Tessa was watching him intently, her breathing still somewhat labored. "Have we met before? You look familiar." Carson shook his head. "I don't think so. I would have remembered." The words slipped out before he could stop them, and he felt heat rise to his cheeks. But Tessa smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her face from merely beautiful to radiant. "I never forget a face," she insisted. "Especially not one that just saved my life. Do you have family in town?" "Maybe that's the connection. Just my daughter, Lily. She's 6. Your wife passed away 3 years ago." Tessa's expression softened. "I'm sorry, that must be incredibly difficult." Before Carson could respond, his phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, seeing his babysitter's name on the screen. Worry immediately knotted his stomach. "I need to take this," he said, standing. "Excuse me." He stepped away from the table, answering quickly. "Mrs. Winters, is everything okay?" "Lily's having trouble with her breathing again," the elderly woman explained, her voice tense. "I've given her the inhaler, but it doesn't seem to be helping much. I think she needs to see a doctor." Carson's heart raced. "I'll be there in 10 minutes. If it gets worse before then, call an ambulance." He hung up and returned to the table. "I'm sorry, I have to go. My daughter is having an asthma attack." Concern flashed across Tessa's face. "Of course, is there anything I can do?" "No, but thank you." Carson turned to leave, then paused. "I'm glad you're okay, Miss Sinclair." "Wait," Tessa called, reaching into her purse and extracting a business card. "Take this. I meant what I said, I'm in your debt." Carson accepted the card, tucking it into his pocket without looking at it. He had far more pressing concerns than a wealthy woman's gratitude. He hurried to explain the situation to Mr. Donovan, who waved him off with unexpected understanding. "Go, family first." 20 minutes later, Carson sat in the emergency room, Lily curled against his side as a nebulizer mask covered her small face. The attack had subsided on the way to the hospital, but the doctor wanted to monitor her for a few hours. "You're going to be okay, Peanut," he whispered, kissing the top of her head. "Sorry, Daddy," she mumbled behind the mask. "Hey, nothing to be sorry for. You're the bravest girl I know." As Lily dozed off, Carson took out the business card he'd been given. It was simple but elegant white cardstock with embossed lettering. Tessa Sinclair, CEO, with a direct phone number handwritten on the back. He ran his thumb over the raised letters, wondering what someone like her could possibly want with someone like him. The next morning, Carson called his supervisor at the construction site to explain why he'd be late. To his surprise, he was told to take the day off with pay. "Orders from the top," his supervisor explained cryptically. "Someone important called the company president this morning." Confused, Carson thanked him and hung up. He looked over at Lily, who was coloring contentedly at their small kitchen table, her breathing finally normal again. "Looks like we get a day together, Peanut," he announced, smiling as her face lit up. "Really? Can we go to the park?" "Maybe later, if you're feeling up to it. For now, how about pancakes?" As he mixed the batter, Carson's mind kept returning to Tessa Sinclair. Had she somehow intervened with his construction job? It seemed impossible, and yet, in a town this size with her connections. His phone rang, displaying a number he didn't recognize. "Hello? Mr. Shaw, this is Tessa Sinclair." Carson nearly dropped the phone. "Miss Sinclair, this is unexpected. Please call me Tessa. I hope I'm not disturbing you, but I wanted to check on your daughter. Is she all right?" Carson leaned against the counter, surprised by her concern. "She's better, thank you. How did you know we went to the hospital?" "Small town," she replied simply. "And I may have made a few calls when I heard. I hope that wasn't overstepping. Did you also call my construction job?" There was a pause. "I might have mentioned to Nathan Wells that his best worker deserved a day off with his daughter after saving a woman's life. Nathan and I serve on the hospital board together." Carson wasn't sure whether to be grateful or uncomfortable with her interference. That was thoughtful, but unnecessary. "Consider it part of repaying my debt," Tessa said, "though I was hoping to do more. Would you and Lily be interested in joining me for lunch today? I know a place with an excellent children's menu." Carson glanced at Lily, who was watching him curiously. "I'm not sure that's a good idea." "Why not?" Because people like you don't typically have lunch with people like me unless they want something. Tessa's laugh surprised him, warm and genuine. Fair enough, but what if what I want is simply to thank you properly? And maybe to solve the mystery of why you look so familiar to me. Against his better judgment, Carson found himself agreeing. Lily would probably enjoy getting out of the house. Wonderful. I'll text you the address. Is noon too early? After hanging up, Carson stared at the phone in disbelief. Had he really just agreed to have lunch with one of the wealthiest women in the state? Who was that, Daddy? Lily asked, looking up from her coloring. Someone I met at work yesterday. She invited us to lunch. Lily's eyes widened. Like a date, Carson laughed. No, Peanut, nothing like that. Just a thank you lunch because I helped her out. At noon, Carson parked his weathered pickup truck beside luxury vehicles that made it look even more dilapidated than it was. He dressed Lily in her nicest dress, a purple one with butterflies that his sister had given her for Christmas, and had put on his only decent shirt and jeans. The restaurant wasn't what he'd expected. Instead of an upscale establishment, it was a charming lakeside cafe with a playground visible from the outdoor seating area. Tessa was already waiting, dressed more casually than the previous night in designer jeans and a simple blouse. Her dark hair fell in loose waves around her shoulders, making her appear younger and more approachable. She smiled when she saw them, standing to greet them. "You must be Lily," she said warmly, bending slightly to meet the little girl's eyes. "I'm Tessa." Lily, usually shy with strangers, smiled back. "Your necklace is pretty." Tessa touched the simple pendant at her throat. "Thank you. It was my mother's." As they settled at the table, Carson couldn't help but notice how natural Tessa was with Lily, asking her about her favorite colors and books without the condescension adults often used with children. "Your daughter is delightful," Tessa said as Lily went to explore the playground after finishing her meal, still within their line of sight. "She's my whole world," Carson replied honestly. Tessa studied him, that same look of puzzled recognition crossing her face. "I still can't shake the feeling we've met before," Carson shrugged. "Maybe I worked on a project for Sinclair Innovations. I've been with Wells Construction for about 4 years. "No, it's something else," Tessa mused. "Before that, perhaps," Carson doubted it. Their worlds were too different to have intersected. He'd grown up in a working-class family, married his high school sweetheart, and had been building a simple life until Sarah's sudden illness had turned everything upside down. "How long have you been running Sinclair Innovations?" he asked, changing the subject. 5 years officially, though I've been involved since I was old enough to understand what my parents built." Her expression grew thoughtful. "It's not always what I wanted, but it's my responsibility now." "What did you want?" The question seemed to surprise her. "No one's asked me that in a long time," she admitted. "I wanted to be a photographer, actually. Travel the world capturing moments that tell stories." Carson nodded. "That sounds amazing. Why didn't you pursue it?" "Family expectations. My father's health declined and someone needed to step up." She smiled ruefully. "The golden handcuffs of privilege, I suppose." There was something vulnerable in her admission that made Carson see beyond the wealth and status. Before he could respond, Lily came running back to the table. "Daddy, can Tessa come see my butterfly collection sometime?" "I told her about it, and she likes butterflies too." Carson glanced at Tessa, who was smiling at his daughter with genuine interest. "I would love to see your collection," Tessa said sincerely. "If your dad thinks it's okay." Put on the spot, Carson found himself nodding. "Maybe sometime." As they were leaving, Tessa touched his arm lightly. "Thank you for coming today. It meant a lot to me." Carson wasn't sure why it would mean anything to someone like her, but he found himself saying, "It was nice. Thank you for inviting us." "I'd like to do it again," she said, her eyes meeting his directly. "And I still need to figure out why you look so familiar." Carson smiled despite himself. "It'll probably come to you at 3 a.m. when you're trying to sleep." Tessa laughed. "Probably I'll call you." It was phrased as a question, giving him the opportunity to decline. But something curiosity, perhaps, or something deeper he wasn't ready to acknowledge made him nod. Sure, Lily would like that. As he drove home, he wondered if he was making a mistake. Their worlds were completely different, and he had enough complications in his life without adding whatever this was becoming. "I like Tessa," Lily announced from the backseat. "She listens to me like Mommy used to." Carson's heart contracted painfully. "She seems nice," he agreed carefully. "And she looks at you funny," Lily added with the brutal honesty of childhood. "Funny how?" "Like how Miss Johnson looks at cookies. Like she really, really wants one but isn't sure she should have it." Carson nearly swerved the truck, caught between laughter and shock at his daughter's unexpected observation. "I think you're imagining things, Peanut." But over the next 2 weeks, he found himself wondering if Lily had seen something he'd missed. Tessa called twice, once to invite them to a community fair her company was sponsoring, and once just to check how they were doing. Each time, their conversations stretched longer than necessary, covering topics from favorite books to childhood memories. At the fair, Carson watched as Tessa, in her casual clothes with her hair pulled back, helped Lily win a stuffed unicorn at her ring toss game. There was no hint of the powerful CEO in how she cheered when the ring landed perfectly, or in how she high-fived his daughter with unrestrained joy. "You're good with her," Carson observed as they shared a bench, watching Lily on the carousel. Tessa's smile was tinged with something like longing. "Kids are easy. They don't care about stock prices or quarterly reports. They just want you to be present." "Is that what you want too?" Carson asked, surprising himself with the directness of the question. Tessa turned to face him, her expression open. "I think so. All the success in the world doesn't mean much when you go home to an empty house." The admission hung between them, creating a moment of connection that transcended their different circumstances. Carson found himself noticing details he'd missed before the light freckles across her nose. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when thinking, the genuine warmth in her eyes when she smiled. "I should check on Lily," he said finally, breaking the moment before it could become something more complicated. As summer progressed, Tessa became a regular presence in their lives. She joined them for ice cream after Lily's t-ball games and helped Carson install a new air conditioning unit when their old one failed during a heat wave. Each time, she arrived without pretense, happy to sit on their worn couch or help with dishes after a simple dinner. Carson found himself looking forward to her visits, appreciating her quick wit and the way she treated his modest home with the same respect she would a mansion. Yet he maintained a careful distance, reminding himself that their friendship was temporary, a novelty for her that would eventually fade. One evening in August, as they sat on his small back porch watching Lily chase fireflies in the yard, Tessa broke their comfortable silence. "I remembered where I know you from," she said quietly. Carson turned to look at her, curious. "Where?" "Brighton Beach Elementary." "You were 2 grades ahead of me, but you helped me once when some boys took my lunch box. You probably don't remember." Carson stared at her in disbelief. "You went to Brighton, but I thought the Sinclairs were always rich." Tessa finished with a wry smile. "No, my parents built the company from nothing when I was in middle school. Before that, we lived in that little blue house on Maple Street." The revelation stunned Carson. He searched his memories and found a faint recollection of a quiet, dark-haired girl with serious eyes and 2 big glasses. "You wore your hair in braids," he said slowly, "and you always had books with you at recess." Tessa's eyes lit up. "You do remember?" "Vaguely," he admitted. "It was a long time ago." 20 years, she agreed, "but I never forgot how you stood up for me that day." "It's funny how life circles back, isn't it? You're still saving me." The way she looked at him then made his heart beat faster. There was admiration there, yes, but something else too, something that made him both hopeful and terrified. "Tessa," he began cautiously, "I need to be honest with you. Whatever this is between us, I'm not sure it makes sense. Our lives are completely different." She didn't look away. "Are they? We both work too much. We both value honesty and kindness. We both know what it's like to have responsibilities we can't walk away from." She hesitated before adding, "And I think we both feel something neither of us expected." Before Carson could respond, Lily came running up, her hands cupped together. "Look, I caught one." The moment passed as they both focused on the little girl's excitement over the glowing insect in her hands. But Carson felt something shift between them, an acknowledgement of possibilities he'd been denying. Later that night, after putting Lily to bed, Carson found himself staring at Tessa's contact information in his phone. His thumb hovered over the call button, his mind racing with what-ifs and reasons to maintain the safety of friendship rather than risk something more. His phone buzzed in his hand, startling him. Tessa's name appeared on the screen with a text message. "I meant what I said earlier. Some differences don't matter if the important things align." "Good night, Carson." He smiled despite himself, typing back. "Good night, Tessa." It wasn't an answer, but it was an acknowledgement, a door left slightly ajar rather than firmly closed. The next morning, Carson was surprised to find Mr. Donovan waiting outside the restaurant before his shift. "Shaw, got a minute?" Carson nodded, concern building. Was he about to lose his second job? With Lily's school supplies and a new round of doctor visits coming up, he couldn't afford that. "I'm retiring," Donovan said without preamble. "Selling the place to a restaurant group. They're keeping most of the staff, but they approached me about you specifically." Carson's stomach dropped. "Sir, I need this job. If it's about the plates," Donovan held up a hand. "They want to offer you management, Shaw. Full-time, benefits, the works. Said you've got the right combination of experience and people skills." Carson stared at him in disbelief. "Management? You've been practically running the place during your shifts for months," Donovan interrupted. "And apparently someone put in a good word for you." "Tessa, it had to be." Carson felt a flash of irritation alongside gratitude. He appreciated the opportunity, but hated the idea that it might be charity rather than merit. When he called her later that day, she answered immediately. "Before you say anything," she began, "I only mentioned your name to the restaurant group. Everything else the offer, the position, that's all based on your work and Donovan's recommendation." "You shouldn't have interfered," Carson said, trying to keep his voice even. "I don't need someone pulling strings for me." "I didn't pull strings. I opened a door," Tessa corrected gently. "There's a difference. The door wouldn't have opened if you hadn't already proven yourself capable," Carson sighed, his frustration fading. "I just don't want to be a charity case, Tessa." "Is that what you think this is? Charity?" There was hurt in her voice now. "Carson, I care about you and Lily. I want your lives to be easier, not because I pity you, but because you both deserve it. You work harder than anyone I know." The sincerity in her voice disarmed him. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "I'm not used to accepting help. It's been just me for so long." "It doesn't have to be," she replied softly. "Not anymore." The words hung between them, weighted with meaning. Carson closed his eyes, allowing himself to consider what she was really offering, not just assistance, but partnership, companionship. A chance to share his burdens rather than carrying them alone. "Can we talk about this in person?" he asked. "Tomorrow night. Lily's staying at my sister's." "I'd like that," Tessa replied, relief evident in her voice. The next evening, Carson welcomed Tessa into his home with newfound clarity. He'd spent the day thinking about what he wanted, not just for himself, but for Lily and their future. They sat together on his small couch, closer than they'd allowed themselves before. "I took the management position," Carson said. "It means I can quit the construction job." "Have more time with Lily." Tessa smiled. "I'm glad. You deserve it, Carson." "I've been thinking about what you said yesterday," he continued, his voice steady despite the nervous pounding of his heart. "About it not having to be just me anymore." Tessa's eyes met his, hopeful but cautious. "And I've been alone since Sarah died. Not just physically, but emotionally. I built walls to protect myself and Lily from more loss." He took a deep breath. "But then you came along and somehow found all the cracks in those walls without even trying." Tessa reached for his hand, her touch gentle. I wasn't looking for cracks. I was just looking at you, the real you. That's what scares me, Carson admitted. You see me clearly, all the flaws and struggles, and you're still here. It makes me hope for things I'd convinced myself weren't possible anymore. Like what? Tessa asked softly. Like falling in love again. Like giving Lily a family that's more than just me doing my best. Like having someone to share both the hard days and the good ones. Tessa's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. Those things are possible, Carson. They're happening already, aren't they? Carson nodded, finally allowing himself to acknowledge what had been growing between them for months. Yes, they are. With that admission, the last of his hesitation dissolved. He leaned forward, his hand gently cupping her cheek as his lips found hers in a kiss that felt both new and familiar, like coming home to a place he'd never been before. When they parted, Tessa smiled, her eyes bright. For the record, I've been half in love with you since you saved me that night. Only half, Carson teased. The other half came later, watching you with Lily, seeing how you put her first no matter what. She squeezed his hand. I'm all in now, though. Me too, Carson replied, realizing it was true. Their different backgrounds and circumstances didn't matter, not compared to what they'd found in each other. Over the following months, their relationship deepened naturally. Tessa became a fixture in their lives, helping Lily with homework and joining their Saturday morning pancake tradition. For Halloween, they coordinated costumes as a family, Lily as a butterfly, Carson as a botanist, and Tessa as a gardener. Carson's new position at the restaurant gave him not just financial stability, but pride in his work and time to be present for his daughter. He watched with amazement as Lily blossomed with Tessa in her life, turning to her for things that sometimes required a woman's perspective. One evening in December, as they decorated their Christmas tree while Lily slept upstairs, Carson found himself watching Tessa hang ornaments with careful precision. Snow fell gently outside the window, and the living room was warm with multicolored lights and comfortable silence. I love you, he said simply. He'd said it before, but tonight it felt different, more settled and certain. Tessa turned, an ornament dangling from her fingers. I love you too. Carson took the ornament from her and set it aside before taking both her hands in his. I've been thinking about our future. Have you? She asked, a smile playing at her lips. Yes, and I've realized something important. He led her to the couch, sitting beside her. When I met you, I thought our different worlds would keep us apart, but that was never the real barrier. What was? Tessa asked, curious. My fear of letting someone new into our lives, fear of depending on someone again, fear of what happens when you build your happiness around another person. He squeezed her hands, but I'm not afraid anymore. Carson reached into his pocket and withdrew a small box. This belonged to my grandmother, he said, opening it to reveal a vintage ring with a modest diamond surrounded by smaller stones. It's not as grand as what you're probably used to. It's perfect, Tessa interrupted, her eyes wide. Carson, are you asking you to marry me? Yes, he smiled at her surprised expression. To be clear, I'm not asking for Lily's sake or because of anything you can provide. I'm asking because I love you and because I want to build a life with you, the good parts and the hard parts, all of it. Tears spilled down Tessa's cheeks. Yes, she whispered, nodding emphatically. Yes, I want that too. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Carson marveled at how different this moment was from when he'd proposed to Sarah years ago, not better or worse, just different. Deeper in some ways, with the wisdom that comes from loss and the appreciation that grows from second chances. Tessa kissed him, her arms wrapping around his neck. How do you think Lily will take the news? She asked when they parted. Carson chuckled. She asked me last week when I was going to make Tessa stay forever. I think she'll be okay with it. She's an incredible kid, Tessa said, leaning her head against his shoulder. You've done an amazing job with her. We'll do an amazing job together, Carson replied, knowing it was true. On Christmas morning, they told Lily over breakfast, watching her face transform with joy as she realized what their engagement meant. "So you'll be my mom now?" she asked Tessa, her small face serious. Tessa knelt beside her chair, meeting her eyes. "I would be honored to be your mom, Lily. But I know you already have a mom who loved you very much. I won't try to replace her." Lily considered this, then nodded solemnly. "I think Mommy would like you. She always said Daddy needed someone to make him laugh more." Carson felt his throat tighten with emotion as Tessa hugged his daughter, both of them smiling through tears. In that moment, watching the two people he loved most in the world, he felt a sense of rightness of family rebuilt from brokenness into something new and beautiful. Their wedding the following spring was small and intimate. Held in the garden of the home they'd purchased together large enough for Lily to have her own space, with a yard for the puppy they'd adopted and room for the family they hoped to grow. As Carson watched Tessa walk toward him in a simple white dress, Lily proudly preceding her with a basket of butterfly-shaped confetti, he thought about the unlikely chain of events that had brought them here. A dropped plate, a piece of food caught in a throat, a moment of crisis that had opened the door to healing and hope. "You look breathless," he whispered as she joined him beneath the flower arch. Tessa smiled, her eyes shining with love. "I've been breathless since the moment you saved me," she replied, "and I hope I never fully catch my breath again." As they exchanged vows before their closest friends and family, Carson finally understood that the greatest act of courage wasn't saving someone from choking, or raising a child alone, or even making it through grief. It was opening his heart again, taking the risk of love, despite knowing its potential cost. And as he kissed his bride, with Lily clapping delightedly beside them, he knew it was a risk worth taking. Not just once, but every single day, for the rest of their lives.